Good afternoon. Welcome to the Good Business Masterclass. I think you guys are connecting still to audio. Welcome. Nice to have you guys here. Welcome to the Good Business Masterclass. If you're here to find out some interesting information to help you reach people out in the interweb without you knowing them, you're in the right space. So welcome. We're going to give it a couple more minutes for people to join us. So while we wait for people to get set up, if you want to take a moment to open up the chat and introduce yourself, share who you are, your business, and also specifically what you are looking to take away from this session as well. So if you open up the chat, introduce yourself. We'll have Sam, if you want to introduce yourself as well. Pop in there who you are, your business, and what you're looking to take away from this session. That gives our host today a good sense of what to focus on and cover. You might have already read when you signed up, it's going to be quite an interactive session. So, you know, if you share really what you need, we can make sure you kind of leave with that as well. So as I said, we're going to give it a couple more minutes for people to join us. So welcome, and do take a moment to open up the chat, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen if you've not been on Zoom before, and introduce yourself and share what you're looking to take away from this session, so we can make sure that you leave with what you've looking to come and get. Great. I've got some people popping up in there already. Fantastic. Superb. Cool, it's nearly 5 minutes past. So yeah, Kate, if you can keep an eye on the wait list, that would be awesome. And while we let other people join us, I'll just go through a bit of an introduction to today. So first of all, before we introduce, I guess, who we are and what we're up to, I wanted to share a couple of tips on making the most of these online sessions. So like I said, introduce yourself in the chat. This is a great space, obviously, to come and get some knowledge, but also to meet other businesses that are doing good. So do share what you're doing in your business, any links to things that people can follow you on. And aligned to that, you might see that I've renamed myself, which you can do if you look at participants at the bottom, and then you go find yourself and you can rename yourself. If you include your business name or your social media handle, again, it makes it easy for everyone else who's coming to the session as well to engage and find you afterwards. So a bit of networking as well as getting some interesting information. I mentioned it's going to be an interactive session as well, and we've got a kind of smaller group here live today. So, you know, really make the most of it, make the most of the host time today. So use the chat to ask questions as you go through. We'll be coming back to that. There'll be a part of the session today all around Q&A from you guys. So, you know, think about what you really want to leave with as we go through, what questions are coming up, capture them, and we're going to take some time at the end to go through them as well. We do encourage you to go on video and on mute. I know Kate's mentioned she's just been back from the dentist, so she's not on camera for that reason. But again, it's great for building visibility. We get to connect with each other as humans, not just blank screens. And the mute is just so we can manage background noises. The session is being recorded, which hopefully you were notified with when you joined. If you are a member of the club, we store all of these recordings in our library, so you can go back whenever you want, whenever you need to watch the session. With loads of other recorded stuff as well that members have contributed into the community as well. So that's why we have that recording. So who am I? Who am I, the person here sitting talking to you guys? So my name is Sarah Osterholzer, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Good Business Club. I'm an impact entrepreneur, an optimist when it comes to good business, and I do a lot of mentoring, helping people get started as well. So do go find us on social media, and let's talk more about the club, right? So one of the reasons that myself and my co-founder set up the Good Business Club is because running a good business is really tough, right? I think we are still creating, we're still debating, and we're still really discovering what it even means to be a good business. There really is no one size fits all. And then on top of making decisions that are positively impacting people on the planet, we're all trying to figure out still how to be sustainable, right? How to make sure we're bringing enough money in to grow the business, to look after and sustain the business as well as the world. It's no easy task. Now, the reason we set the club was, yes, that is a given. It's going to be tough. That's not going to change. So why figure it out on your own? Why work in isolation, trying to, start from scratch, reinvent the wheels, learn from, quite impactful mistakes? That figuring out on your own is your choice. But I know that you guys are here already today because you actually want to reach out and get support from others. And that's exactly what members of the club are all about. So we are not perfect businesses by any stretch of the imagination, but we do pledge to do business differently, and we support each other on that journey. Because we know that actually by working collectively, by tapping into the experience and expertise of other people in the business sphere, that will have a lasting impact on our businesses and the world as well. So that's very much what we're all about. And these sessions specifically are all about tapping into that experience and expertise, right? So some of these sessions are very practical, like today's, getting really practical advice on very focused areas from people who are specialists in this, and also learning from other founders. So our founders come and share their own journeys around specific topics as well, to share the challenges that they've had to overcome, the lessons they've learned, so that you can be setting up and creating a business that is thriving without all these decades of experience that other businesses have. So that's what we're all about. And today's session, who I'll pass over to in a second. So our host today is Sam Rafe, the Managing Director of Brand Ambition. So they're an SEO first branding and marketing agency. And today, Sam wanted to run this session specifically to just debunk some of the myths around SEO. I don't know about you, but it's a term that I hear a lot, but still don't fully understand. And like all our sessions, we're going to get some really practical advice, some real life examples, so that you can walk away understanding how you can actually be finding more potential clients, increasing your reach, without you having to do potentially all the legwork you're doing at the moment, really harnessing a tool that exists that can have a really big impact on your business. So I'm going to leave it there, Sam. Hopefully that's a good intro for you, and I'll stop sharing. And if you want to share your screen, and yeah, over to you.
Will do. Great intro. Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. Really nice to see you. Yeah, so today's session I'm going to run through as much as I can within the time limit, and really just talking about SEO in general, and basically how to get discovered on your website. And that's a lot of what today's session's about. Hopefully leave you with some practical tips. There's loads and tons of resources in this slide deck, which you'll be sent afterwards. So feel free to pick through that afterwards and click on the links that are hidden within the slides, and I'll point them out where relevant. So I guess the first thing is to talk through what we're going to cover, and obviously I'll talk a little bit about who I am and who Brand Ambition is, but I'll keep that very short, because really what we want to get into is talking about practical advice, and how Google works, and where to start with it. If you just set a website up, or even if you've had a website for a couple of years, how can you make the most of that within Google's environment at the moment. We've got some simple things that you can do now. We've got then some more technical SEO resources, and hopefully we'll debunk some of the terminology around that. We'll talk about one of the most common questions that I get asked by clients, which is how long should content be? So how long should my pages be? How long should my blog posts be? And then we've got a very quick 120-second intro to link building. Don't time me on that. And then finally, we'll leave you with the one trick that will get your website to the top of Google every time. And that's what we're here for, right? Okay, so me. So who are Brand Ambition? So Brand Ambition are a digital marketing agency. we focus on these three core words, which are, excite, ignite, explode. Everything that we do, kind of all of our services sit under those banners. So we do everything from strategy creation through to digital PR. We're a family-owned, family-run business. So I run the company with my uncle, who's significantly older than me, although he'd hate me for saying that. But I have to say, he does actually look about 10 years younger than me. He set up agencies before. Was working for the last 7 years as a kind of a creative director, basically just on his own. And during the pandemic, we set up, essentially because I was at a bit of a loss, kind of took a massive wage cut, kind of as a lot of people did during the pandemic. And we kind of thought, right, okay, what can we do? And so we started talking, and essentially he's the brand and I'm the ambition. So my background is SEO, and that's kind of where we kind of combine everything together to create this kind of full service. So we're about 5 people strong now, but we've worked with some really nice clients kind of throughout that time, and we bring kind of past experience through to a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So essentially, kind of when I started back in SEO, I wasn't really looking to get into it. I was essentially a salesperson, and then I found a passion for it, and I got more and more into it. And now, kind of, I like to call myself a bit of an all-rounder in terms of the SEO world, which sounds ridiculous to people who don't work in marketing and SEO, because they see it as a very specialist subject. But hopefully, you'll see what I mean a little bit today. So enough about me, enough about us. Let's talk a little bit more about how Google works, and who better really to answer how Google works than Google. So I'm actually just going to share a video for you, and play that. You can call it lazy if you want to, but I'm calling it efficient.
Search is a powerful tool. It allows users to find, share, and access an almost infinite amount of content, regardless of how or where they connect. Understanding how Google search works is essential if you have an online business and you want your customers to find you. Whether you have a website, blog, social media profile, or Google My Business listing, Google goes through a whole journey to find your business, categorize it, and show it to your potential customers. First of all, Google needs to realize your business has a presence on the web. For this, Google constantly searches for new content to add to its huge catalog. This discovery process is called crawling. Google generally discovers web pages by following links from page to page, finding new content never seen before. Once the Google crawler, which we call Googlebot, has found your website, it has to understand what the content is all about. This process is called indexing. Just as you would organize the inventory of your store, whether it's shoes, sweaters, or dresses, Google analyzes the content on your page and saves this information to its index, a database considered to be the biggest library in the world. How can you help the Google Index understand your content better? Learn more about that at the link in the description below. All right, now Google has found your website, and Googlebot knows you have an online shop that sells clothes. What happens next? When a user types a search query, Google's systems sort through hundreds of billions of web pages in the search index, looking for the most useful and relevant results in a fraction of a second. This step is called ranking. For a typical query, there are thousands, even millions of web pages with potentially relevant information. Google has to determine the highest quality and most relevant answers, returning the content that provides the best user experience and most appropriate results. Some of these factors may include the user's location, language, and device type. For example, searching for "buy a nice shirt" might show different answers to a user searching from New York than it would to a user searching from Miami. Remember, Google search results are organic and generated through sophisticated algorithms that make thousands of calculations for each search in a fraction of a second, based only on the relevance of a page to a user's query. Google never accepts payment from anyone to be included in organic search results, or to alter a page's ranking in any way. When you use Google Search, ads may appear with your search results, but they are clearly labeled so they are easy to distinguish from the rest of the page. So now you know that Google crawls the web to discover new content, Google indexes the content, categorizing it like a catalog, and Google's ranking systems scan the index to serve the most relevant results to users. If you'd like to learn more about how search works and how to improve your site's visibility in Google search, follow the Google Webmaster Guidelines, read our SEO Starter Guide, and visit the Webmaster Portal, your one-stop shop for support documentation. Links to these resources are in the description below. Be sure to check out the next episode. Is my website searchable on Google? Search is a powerful tool.
Right, so we'll stop that there, and I'll hopefully be able to move on. So hopefully that played all right, and everything came through. I've just lost my camera, so I'm just gonna try and find that from somewhere. There we are. So hopefully that came through all right, and you can kind of see what they're talking about. And you know, I think kind of it's important to start with what is a search engine and what ultimately what a search engine does, because it really helps you understand actually kind of what SEO is about, and ultimately what what that process that you're going through really is about. And it's about creating the right content for your users. It's about creating the best content for users, and it's about being the best authority in that space. And we'll come on and talk a little bit about that. But you know, ultimately SEO is about making small improvements to websites with the purpose of increasing, you know, your traffic, your leads, your revenue. Why do people hire SEOs? It's because we tend to do the fiddly things that no one has time to do to support traffic and revenue growth. So, you know, we write blog posts and we optimize blog posts, and we sit and we do title tags and meta descriptions and all these fiddly little things within a website. And that's ultimately why, but I am going to talk to you through kind of like how you can avoid kind of hiring someone like me. So SEO can be really easily broken down into 4 kind of key specialisms, right? So there's the technical on-site. So that basically helps Google find your website. So these are all the kind of the little technical things within your website, that like things like URL structure and just understanding kind of how web pages work and the speed of web pages in terms of how they connect to the internet, and all these little kind of technical elements. And again, we'll come on to those later. Then there's content and data, and essentially that is kind of what you write on the website and the content that you put out there. But Google uses that to understand what you do and what you sell. So keywords become a really big important factor in that. And if you've heard of SEO, you've probably heard about keywords and how important keywords are. Again, we'll come on and demonstrate that. And then there's digital PR and link building. So how does Google know if you're an expert on a topic? It uses links, and it uses your digital PR presence on the internet to understand that you're the authority on that topic. So that's why getting links, getting PR, you know, making sure that people are talking about you online is a really big factor into SEO. And then finally, kind of the 4th bit is local SEO. So exactly as Google were just talking about there, you know, searches change depending on where your location is and where you are and where your users are. So Anna, I can see that you're a nutritionist there, for example. So a lot of your clients will naturally be local to you, or kind of like, you know, where you're starting to touch on will be local to you, you know, and so local SEO will naturally be quite important to that. And really kind of local SEO, we don't touch on it too much today, but it's just about optimizing kind of the Google map, the Google My Business elements, really. So, okay. But ultimately from Google's point of view, so I've kind of, you know, that's what Google looks at your website. But as Google looks at it, it just kind of thinks that actually by doing all that, you're helping your customers find that. So that's Google's kind of sole purpose, is ultimately just, you know, helping customers find the right products that, you know, in the right location, and making sure that you're an authority in the space. And that's all you're really trying to do with your website. So the best SEO advice that I often give startups or people setting up, or even kind of established businesses, is don't worry too much about the SEO and the technical side, and we'll talk about that. But right from your area of expertise, make sure that kind of you're putting a footprint out there. If you're doing nothing else, start. Because that ultimately, by you putting content out there on your website, you start to get a bit of a feedback of, does that work? Does it not work? Do people respond to this? Are people sharing this? Are people linking to this? Is this useful for people? And until you kind of look at the data and understand that, then you're not really going to know. But you're definitely not going to know that if you don't just start. We get lumped in with kind of SEO gets lumped in with web development quite a lot. And there's a really important difference between web development and SEO. So web developers build solutions to problems and enable customers and businesses to engage online. So they're only really focused on the building, the enabling, the engaging online part. They're, the actual function of a website. An SEO's job is to make sure that customers find those solutions over competitors to drive conversions and revenue. So we market the website, essentially. So where do you start? So again, I probably couldn't put anything better here than the resources that Google have, at your disposal, and they're all for free. So I've put 3 links here. One's to the Get on Google guide, which is fantastic. It shows you kind of like how specifically to kind of get on Google and make sure that Google's seeing all of your website. The other one is Google for Small Business, and you can put in kind of the type of business that you are, and it gives you tips and tricks on what you can do to basically get noticed on that side. And then there's Google My Business. So Google My Business is essentially the map pack. So whenever you type anything, anything that has a location on Google, you'll get the map up, and you'll have seen this loads of times. You can basically control and optimize all of that through Google My Business. And if you have a physical location, it's even better, because all you do is they send you a postcard, you type in the code that's on the postcard into Google My Business, and you then own your own little listing, and you can add offers on there, you can update the opening times and kind of and everything. So it's really good. Again, it's free. So give it a go. So once you're on Google, we've gone through that step. So I'm making the assumption that we've all gone through that step now. We've got our website kind of somewhere ranking on Google, or we think kind of people are seeing it. We can at least see our brand name somewhere around that. And again, we can kind of talk a little bit about that maybe at the end for anyone that's having specific issues. Then essentially you need to optimize it, right? So optimizing in terms of a technical point of view, really it just means about kind of like tweaking things and making images, the weight of images smaller. So what tends to happen is, you tend to put on an image and it's the full size of the camera phone photo that you've taken. And the pixel size of that might be, the equivalent to a 60-inch plasma screen. That's how big that photo is. But the majority of people are only going to view your website on a phone or on a laptop. So you can actually reduce the size of that image to fit your website. Now, there's plugins, and there's there's other websites, and there's plenty of other places that you can put that image through to reduce the size of it. Canva is fantastic for this, for example. You can go on Canva and reduce an image down to any size that you need to. The key is just finding what the right size is for your website. So that's essentially one of the biggest problems with page speed on the internet, is people basically putting images that are too big in place of it. So the top 5 things that Google are really caring about, the thing that they are kind of talking to us about quite a lot at the moment, are page speed, So again, and there's a number of reasons for that. One of it is, is environmental, because by reducing the size of the data that's downloaded on your page, it means that there's less server processing. So there's less carbon being passed, there's less energy being used. So that, it's really good to kind of have a really quick website, and that's one of the reasons why they look at it. Being mobile first, because the majority of the internet is now mobile first. Having unique, expert and authoritative content. So if you're an authority in your space, make sure that you write kind of from from that position, or get other people involved on your website, on a blog or on news or places like that. And then, accessibility. Accessibility is all about kind of opening up the internet for people with disabilities, essentially. So, anybody that uses a screen reader, to navigate the internet, that's what accessibility is about, and that will be the kind of the next big thing that Google really cares about. And then, finally, one of the things that Google's focused on quite a lot is SERP automation, and it's not something that you guys are really gonna worry about, but it's just good to be aware of the fact that Google is looking at ways to stop looking at people's websites so much, so that they can kind of tell you which ones they should rank for. Again, all of that came out as techno mumble jumble, and I totally get that, and we will kind of debunk some of this as we go through. We've gone through a process now of kind of where we're talking about the website, we're talking about their impact and how Google sees those websites, and the other thing that's kind of that you need to be aware of from an SEO point of view is just the impact of search trends, and these can really give you a bit of a leg up in terms of your website if you're able to kind of take advantage of these. So I've got another video here, and it's a couple of minutes long, but I think it just really demonstrates how people use Google, and again, kind of I think that's really important from an SEO point of view and understanding it.
The most human trait is to want to know why. And in a year that tested everyone around the world, why was searched more than ever.
The spread of the coronavirus has passed a significant milestone.
And while we didn't find all the answers, we kept asking. Some questions inspired joy, others excitement.
The more we do it, the more we raise. So it's amazing. I'm so proud of that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know what an improper fraction is.
Teachers should make $1 billion.
Yeah, that's got to be the aisle. That's got to be.
Remember not to touch your face. Thank you, baked potato.
But I can give you a hug and I'm not touching you.
Some questions made us cry.
We've been through our ups and been through our downs. I think the most important part is that we all stay together throughout. I love you guys.
Some made us worry about this spinning rock we call home.
Fires were detected in the Amazon rainforest.
Why were so many lives lost?
Almost 1.5 million people have now died of COVID-19 worldwide.
Why are we still asking the same questions?
George Floyd repeatedly told the officers that he could not breathe.
So why do we still have the strength to continue?
I believe in your power. I believe in our power.
Chants of Black Lives Matter echoed from thousands of protesters in cities around the world.
Why are we not defeated?
Planes are starting to arrive in Beirut full of international aid.
There are over 100 coronavirus vaccines in development worldwide.
This is just one of those times when people look out for one another and have each other's backs.
We kept going for those who showed us the way.
Think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters.
Remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Press on with pride and press on with purpose.
Why is it that this year showed us its worst and we still found ways to triumph?
Soccer US Open Championship.
Time has come! The time really has come!
Soldiers formed a guard of honor for the final laps.
So until we get to every answer, we're still searching.
So, you know, why is that important? You know, from a Google point of view, kind of from your SEO point of view, why does that really matter in the purpose of your website? And the answer to that is, you know, is simply that people ask questions more than anything else, kind of like on the internet, and that's where a lot of the opportunity for small businesses exist. So if you're able to write about why and create FAQs and, you know, answer questions for people and show your authority in that space, you're more likely going to get traffic through to your website than you would if you only care about and focus on the top level keywords. So and you know, when you look at kind of Google as an entity and what people actually put into Google, kind of yes, there are regular search volumes, and I'll talk about that in a second, of big phrases, you know, so you know, business clubs, business networking, kind of those types of phrases. But actually really, you know, what people are looking for a lot of the time are these informational phrases and kind of like these questions, and actually they're the ones where the big corporations don't really bother with. They don't really kind of like look at the answers. So actually, you know, you can steal a little bit of traffic kind of here and there, and it's a nice little tactic to be able, you know, from a startup point of view or from a small business point of view, to find little rankings that essentially you can steal and get traffic from. So that's what we're going to talk about now, and we're going to do that by playing a game. So I can only apologize for the figures that are about to pop up. I do this quite a lot. But essentially what we're going to play is play your cards right. Okay, so we're going to play the brand ambition, play your cards right. And there's Brucey for a Brucey bonus. Now, what you essentially need to know to play this game is that, or what we're going to talk about are Premier League clubs, because I'm really not into football, but I use this because it's an example that people can identify with quite quickly, and everybody kind of knows Premier League clubs in one way, shape, or form. So what the screen in front of you is telling you is that Manchester United had the phrase Manchester United has 2.2 million searches per month. So 2.2 million people search Manchester United in Google every month. Okay, so the game, feel free to unmute for this, since we're such a small group, and I actively encourage you to. The game is the phrase Arsenal higher or lower than Manchester United? Lower.
Higher.
Lower.
So 4.1 million, much higher, right? Okay, now you know the game. Chelsea.
Higher.
Higher.
Lower, I go lower again.
Lower again. Anna's right. Well done, Anna. That's 2 for 2. Newcastle United.
Lower.
Lower. Much lower. Southampton.
Lower.
Much lower. Aston Villa.
You put the answer.
Too late, yeah. Sorry. Higher. So what's interesting about these phrases is that when you kind of go through them, so Aston Villa, Leeds United, what are we thinking?
Lower.
Lower. So much higher. So Leeds is a global institution like Manchester United, but you know, the interesting one the interesting one between Manchester United and Arsenal. So the reason that Arsenal is a lot higher than Manchester United is Manchester United as a phrase is 2 words. And Manchester United is also Man U, you know, or, you know, for example, you know, kind of a lot of people, and also you could spell Man U, or Man United, or, you know, so there's a lot of different ways to say that phrase. So that's something that you've got to think about in terms of kind of like the searches, really, in terms of when you're writing something or when you're talking about something, don't just use the same phrase all the time to describe something. You know, a good author, when they're writing a book, they don't use the same word to describe the same thing over and over again. And nor should you do that in your news, in your blog, in your, you know, in your content, because ultimately you'll pick up different phrases and different phrase uses, and you'll pick up, you know, lots more traffic if you kind of have a little bit of variation. You know, it needs to be readable. But okay, so Leeds United versus Leeds, and there's only a couple more of these. What do we think? So Leeds United, 2 words, Leeds, 1 word.
Higher.
Higher.
Leeds United, Leeds will be higher than United.
So Leeds United was 2.2 million. Leeds, I'm saying Sarah went higher, Kate went lower. Higher. So much lower, right? And again, yes, exactly. And I think that's the point. The surprise nature of this is that you can't really guess it, and that's why I play this game, because you know, it doesn't really matter what you think. You need to be able to use the data, right? So because what I think doesn't really account. You know, what I would count in doesn't really count. It's what the maths, and you know, none of us are maths people, are we? So Leeds versus Brighton, final one. Brighton much higher.
Higher?
Higher.
I think Leeds is higher. Believe it. I know I was shocked by this as well. I was like, no way. And this is the table, right? So this is the table of all the Premier League clubs, and you can kind of see Arsenal sits on that top spot. You know, Liverpool, Chelsea, Leeds United. I updated this yesterday, so it's really up to date. But you know, again, it's just you know, from that point, the whole reason that we play this game is because it's quite interesting, because it's like, right, okay, well, now that I understand that some phrases have a certain monthly search volume around them, you know, then I need to actually think, okay, well, what about this phrase? Does it have a search volume? You know, I talk about my business in this way. Do other people talk about my business in this way? And that is what SEO is about. It's about understanding not how you talk about your business, but how other people would talk about your business. So that's why we describe ourselves as a digital brand marketing agency. The phrase digital brand marketing agency has virtually no searches whatsoever, but digital marketing agency has a lot of phrases. Brand marketing agency has a lot of phrases, and digital marketing agency has a lot of phrases. You know, so you know, thinking about how you describe yourself is really important. Again, I'll talk through this a little bit, but you know, this is really something you just need to go in and play with. So this is a free tool from Google, and you'll get to this screen and it'll probably ask you to put in a credit card, at which point you'll get scared that you're going to spend some money. You won't spend money unless you create an ad, so just don't create an ad, but then you can use the tools behind it. The nice thing about Google is that they'll give you some free ad credit if you do want to spend some money with them. But essentially what you do is you're looking in this tools and settings section for the keyword planner, right? So when you signed up and you're going to go through that process, you're looking for the keyword planner. And from that, you'll be able to kind of press this button and discover some new keywords. Now, you can either start with your website. So Google's very clever. It'll look at your website. It'll look at all the words on your website, and it'll say, we think you should bid on these phrases. Don't worry about the bid part. We're using this from an SEO point of view. We're using this from okay, well, those are the phrases that Google thinks my website should rank for. If the phrases that are in there aren't the ones that you would expect, then you've got some work to do on your content. You know, you've got to think about kind of like, okay, well, what content do I want to rank for? And that's where the start with keywords bit comes in really nicely. So once you put in your website and basically click get results, It literally gives you the phrases and then the average monthly search volume for each phrase. So that's all free. You know, it's not like you've got to pay for any of that. And it's really, really useful for understanding kind of your own site and your own market, and you know, and ultimately how you want to talk about your business and how you want to write content for your business. And you can, you know, download the keywords onto an Excel, and it'll give you the more specific monthly search volumes as well. So I know that that's getting a little bit technical, but you know, it is a really simple kind of process. Once you've done it a couple of times, you'll get it, and you'll see a lot of value in that. Again, free. So we've gone through this. The story that we've essentially gone through is, we know how Google works ish. We understand that kind of keywords and phrases and writing content on our website is important, and that there's a few, you know, different areas of SEO. You know, how do we actually implement SEO? Because that's what we're here to do. I'm going to be honest, the implementation of SEO isn't any, you know, it's not a particularly easy thing, because it understanding your website, and it requires kind of, you know, a little bit of technical knowledge, and it's not for everyone, and it's why it gets handed to web developers a lot of the time. This page has everything that you could possibly need to know to get started. So each one of these boxes has a link on them, and it tells you what that phrase is, what it means, and what it means for SEO. And it's why I'm not going to go through it today, because, like, you know, it would take ages to go through the 12 boxes here. There is also this Moz guide, which is a 1-hour guide to SEO, and you know, it's brilliant because it'll just talk through, again, some of the things that I've talked through today, but you know, it'll talk about kind of you and your website and that side of things. So you know, from a technical point of view, improving your meta information, which are your title tags and your meta descriptions, which are things that you might or may not have heard of before, you know, can really make a difference kind of on the targeting for your pages. So if you use that keyword research that we talked about and kind of apply that to a few of these elements, then that's going to help you improve your SEO and your kind of your technical SEO. So we're getting close to time, but we're not doing too bad. So we're going to talk about content now. So, you know, how long should my content be? And John Mueller, who's a very prominent figure in Google, in their organic web spam team, he said, why would a search engine use word count as a metric? And he's right, because ultimately, you know, the amount of words on a page doesn't really matter, because all they're looking to do is deliver the user the best experience possible. However, research tells us that John may think that and Google may think that, but actually, you know, overall, the average word count of a listing or a page on the Google top 10 is around 1,500 words. Okay, so the problem with that statement is that causation doesn't equal effect. You know, it doesn't mean that if you write 1,500 words, you're guaranteed a Google top 10 listing. It just means that the average kind of top 10 listing in Google, so being on the front page and actually getting that traffic, means that you're going to have to put a little bit more effort than you think that you're going to have to put into a lot of the time. So you need to answer questions, and you need to point people to the right links, and you need to you know, show your authority a little bit more. So, you know, I stress that it doesn't mean that every bit of content should have 1,500 words. But the good thing about writing longer form content and longer form blog posts, and again, a lot of the time we talk about quality over quantity, is that longer blog posts, more insightful guides drive more backlinks, they drive more shares, and they drive more visits. So instead of writing a 400-word blog post, think about how you can turn that, you know, the 5 400-word blog posts that you had in mind, think about how you can make that into a series and essentially make one really nice long blog post. But you've not just got to worry about the words, you've got to think about, where does the content go? How does it look? How does the video, you know, how do the videos look? You've really got to kind of get into the content and actually make sure that it's interesting to read. And then finally, kind of what we've also found is that comprehensive content tends to rank better. So again, kind of, all of these things that I've been talking about, kind of answering FAQs and kind of putting a little bit more information in there and making sure that that your page responds to all different types of customers, not just the people that are skimming your website, giving them opportunities to kind of have a look at it. So what I've done is essentially create a very ugly diagram that is the perfect SEO content structure for a blog, right? And there's some technical terms in here, but ultimately it kind of shows you the structure that is quite nice for a blog post and works quite well. So at the top, so let's just focus on the middle column. Don't worry too much about the two columns on either side. At the top, you essentially have your title, right? And from a code point of view, that should be wrapped in a header tag, what we call a H1. Most websites do that automatically, so you probably won't have to worry about that. Then what I like to do with blog content, and there's SEO reasoning behind this, is have a bit of a bulleted list, have a summary at the start, because a blog post isn't a novel. You're not waiting for the surprise reveal at the end. The people that land on your blog post want to know that you've got a couple of seconds, like if that, to prove to them that it's the right blog post and they want to read on. So a bullet pointed list at the start of everything that you covered and a link within those bullet points to further down the page means that person can go, yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm going to get the answers to the topics that I need. Then you have, each section subheaded. And again, kind of within that, you might have structured content. It won't unsurprise those of you that have written, theses and been to university and kind of written kind of like, that sort of stuff. It's starting to sound a little bit like that. The structure isn't too dissimilar, and it's the same with linking out for references. That's really important as well. Kind of if you can't answer it within your blog post, but you're using somebody else's stat, just link to it. Like it's let people kind of go off and do that little further bit of reading. They may or may not come back, but the important thing from a Google point of view is that you're not trying to monopolize people when they're there. Adding in images, videos, tabled content with kind of like numbers and that sort of stuff, FAQs, numbered lists, and kind of any related and further reading. These are all massive signs to Google that you care about the users that are on your page, but they also open up a whole thing called featured snippets. Now, featured snippets you'll have seen if you type in a movie, a character, or an actor, and you get like the snippet at the top. But you'll also seen it if you type in a question. Occasionally, you get one organic listing that's in a box on its own, and it answers kind of like the first paragraph. The way to get that is essentially to do what this blog post structure is telling you to do, because each one of these has its own featured snippet. So having a numbered list in there, there is a numbered list featured snippet. There's an FAQs featured snippet. There's image, there's videos featured snippet. So all of that, just by structuring your blog post in there, will open you up to possibly ranking better within your content. And that's ultimately what we want, is to drive more traffic. So that's why it's the perfect SEO content structure, if you like. Okay, yeah, I've got 2 minutes, I think. The importance of links. Okay, so we've talked about keywords, we've talked about content, we've talked about technical, and obviously you're all going to go and look at those, click on those links later. But link building. So if tomorrow I copied all the content from the BBC News, how would a machine know who wrote it and which site should it display for every topic? So if everything was the same, and I did, all the code was the same, everything was the same, it was being updated at the same time, we have the technology to be able to do that. How can Google know which website is the correct BBC? Okay. The answer to that is it shouldn't be able to. If I've done my job right, it shouldn't be able to. So what Google does is it uses links. So the number of people that have referenced that website as to identify that it's the authority in that space. So if all things are equal and your content is exactly the same as your competitors, then you need links to be able to say, right, I'm more of an authority than they are. So if I take that theory one step further, what if I then went out and bought the 559 million backlinks that the BBC have, you know, or the 652,000 domains? If I went out and bought all of those, you know, how would it be able to tell us apart? And the fact of that is that you know, it wouldn't be able to, but it would be able to purely based on the fact that, you know, all of those links happened across over time. All of my links will be bought instantly. There's a time and an authority there, and ultimately Google would be able to tell the difference, because it would focus on quality. And the fact is that kind of people would continue to link to the correct BBC. I'm never going to own the BBC News domain, so people would continue to link to the correct domain. So then we kind of take that further and kind of like, okay, well, what if it wasn't the BBC? What if it was your website? You know, how do you prove to a machine that you deserve to be on top? If all of the things are equal and your content is as good as everyone else's, and it's as good as your competitors, and your technical SEO is as good as everyone else's, how do you prove to a machine that you deserve to be on top? And the answer is links. It's getting links. It's getting other people from other websites to link to your website. So it's a bit of a scary thing because social links don't count, right? So from an SEO point of view, you can't kind of sign up to Twitter, sign up to LinkedIn, sign up to kind of all the things that we rely on so heavily. They don't count. So you actually need to be able to get links from other people in the public forum. So there's 5 kind of really simple ways to get links. One is just to ask them from people you know, that own websites and that run businesses, and you know, write a quality and relevant guest post on someone else's website. So again, talk about, you know, we're talking about your authority there. Show that you're an authority in that space. Like I wrote a post on the Good Business Club's website, you know, a few months ago, and you know, and for that exact reason, you know, my business isn't about the Good Business Club, but I can talk about my business in that forum because you know, because I have something to contribute to the members there. Again, you will too, so I'm sure Kate will be up for plenty of inundated blog posts from that side. You can give testimonials. So one of the things that I love to do is give testimonials to all the software that I pay for. So kind of as an SEO, I pay for about 12 different pieces of software. Each one of those has a testimonial that I kind of give them on a regular basis. And, you know, in exchange, I might get a link back off 5 of them, you know, so any of your suppliers, anything like that, anybody that you use, you know, it's usually a fairly quick link for them because they feel like they're getting a recommendation and you end up with if you've got a PR agency or you're doing PR yourself or kind of from that sort of side, you can turn mentions into backlinks as well. So just kind of basically contacting the journalist and just basically asking. It doesn't always work. You know, some of them are a bit prickly, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's well worth doing. And then create guides that people want to link to as well. So again, creating that content and pushing it out there on social media and hoping that people will link to it. We're running short of time, so I'll run through these very, very quickly. But essentially, if you want to replace your SEO agency or kind of never hire one in the first place, there's a link here where you can learn all the fundamentals. It's a massive resource, has loads of details on it, and you know, you should get comfortable with data as well. Kind of, so all of these are different packages of software, and you know, you can even do qualifications and test yourself. You know, absolutely, kind of. All of that stuff is open on the internet. And we have a bit of a Good Business Club offer. So Brand Ambition, as I mentioned, is a family business. We've basically, well, I've talked to Sarah about this before, but essentially we're working with apprentices and students and digital execs to level up their digital skills. So it's something that we're doing at the moment. I worked for 7 years in the gambling industry, hated it, felt like I was sucking the soul out of everything. So what I want to do is stop more people going into the gambling industry by essentially helping them work on good businesses. So the package that we've essentially come up with is we oversee all the campaigns, we do all the strategy, but the kind of like the young kind of inexperienced people get a chance to work on good businesses. And we've got 3 more spaces in February 22, and essentially the setup is £500 for a one-off strategy initial audit, and then it's £750 per month after that, but it's just monthly rolling, so there's no tie-in or anything like that. You know, it's some businesses can, you know, are in a good position for it, some aren't, but you know, ultimately we've put it in there so that we can make sure that kind of the people that we're bringing up are working on good businesses. So that's part of the reason why we put it together. And we've had a bit of success off it already. We turned 50 quid into 10 grand for a business in one of the test scenarios, which is kind of yeah. But again, that is there. Finally, the one SEO trick that guarantees top results, it's consistency. And it's just consistently improving your website, keeping it up to date, keep checking against competitors, testing and replicating things. You know, kind of there's a whole host of little consistently things there that you need to be able to do. But you know, that is the one thing that essentially that works over time, is just kind of making sure that kind of you consistently keep me up to date. Very much like a social media profile. The better you do from that side, the better. The more you do on a social media profile, the better it actually, you know, better it gets. Thank you for listening.